Okay, so let us consider the ear, right? The role of the ear is to convert sound waves into neural activity, and the cells that are going to actually carry out stimulus transduction, what we call the inner hair cells, are actually localized deep inside here in what we call the inner ear. It's a structure known as the cochlea, a coiled structure that actually means snail in Latin. But remember, the sound wave is, something generated by something vibrating, moving around out here. Depending on how fast the frequency is, it'll be a higher, frequency sound or a lower frequency sound. It'll have an amplitude, right? In terms of the difference between the highest pressure, compression, and, the lowest rarefaction. But these sound waves are going to be emanating out, from something that has vibrated out here in the environment and working their way towards your ears. And they're going to be captured by all these whorls and channels that we find in the pinna. This is Latin for wing. These are the portions that we typically think of as the ear when you say, where's somebody's ears, head, noses, ears, and toes, whatever. This is what you point to. But this is a component of what we call the outer ear. And it's a specific, structure called the pinna, the wings. And our pinna are actually, they're interesting. They have all these whorls, and they're kind of unique in a lot of ways, that actually serve to channel sound waves, compressions and rarefactions down into this kind of channel. It's called the auditory canal. It goes about an inch inside on either side of your head. Goes into the bone. There's something called the auditory meatus, which is like a hole in the skull right there. And then it's going to encounter kind of a flexible membrane that's called the eardrum, colloquially, but it's also known as the tympanic membrane. Tympany is drumming. And, the captured sound waves, compressions, rarefactions that get channeled down, that auditory canal, will then cause the movement of that drum. So we've converted, the initial, kind of vibration of something into, vibrations, pressure changes, and sound waves, and now we've converted into the physical movement, right? Transducing the physical movement of the eardrum. Our pinna, by the way, I should mention, is, they're unlike many animals, we can't move them. Some people can move your ears, but, other animals can really, direct, their pinna to try to maximize, the source of the sound wave to help to localize sounds. We don't have that ability, actually. Typically. And anyway, the pinna, the auditory canal, and the lateral, portion of the tympanic membrane or eardrum form what we refer to as the outer ear. Now, on the medial portion of the eardrum, or the tympanic membrane, it's attached to a series of small bones, actually, that are collectively called the ossicles, and they consist of the malleus, or the hammer, the incus, or the anvil, and the stapes, which is, Latin for stirrup, and it looks like a little stirrup. And the stapes is the smallest bone in your body, and the malleus is attached, to the drum on the medial aspect of it, and the stapes is attached to another flexible membrane that's on, the cochlea. And it's called the oval window. It's kind of oval shaped. So the stapes has an oval, platform of the stirrup, and it, pokes in and out, in this flexible membrane, that, is right on the exterior there of the cochlea, or what we call the inner ear. So the medial aspect of the tympanic membrane or eardrum, the three bones, the three ossicles, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes, the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, and the lateral, aspect of the oval window, form what we call the middle ear. And, what is the middle ear for? What do we need a middle ear for? Well, what the bones, those ossicles, are doing is they're capturing, the vibratory energy, right? That is, by comparison to the malleus and incus, and particularly the stapes, that tiny little bone, pushing on the oval window, it's a pretty wide, area of capture in relationship to the oval window, the tympanic membrane is. And so what the ossicles are doing is they're kind of amplifying, they're focusing, they're concentrating the energy that's being collected by the, in comparison, wider drum, or tympanic membrane into this, needle-like poking, into the oval window in into the cochlea. So the ossicles are your amplifier. The middle ear is your amplifier. There's a very famous tube, right, that also runs down from the middle ear into the back where your nose and your pharynx kind of meet up back there, called the eustachian tube, which allows for equalization of pressure across the tympanic membrane. You go like that, for example, to try to lift a little flap there at the end of the eustachian tube and allow for air pressure to equalize across the tympanic membrane, from the outer ear to the middle ear, so that you don't have the tympanic membrane sort of popped out a little bit because of the higher pressure inside, which can make it harder to hear because the membrane cannot vibrate in response to sound waves that are being channeled down the auditory canal. Now, the oval window, right? And remember the medial aspect, or sorry, the lateral aspect, the portion in the middle ear is considered part of the middle ear. So it's gonna move with the poking of the ossicles, right, of the stapes, and it's gonna generate waves inside the cochlea. So everything that is medial to that oval window. So the medial aspect of the oval window and the cochlea, which we're going to see is the fluid-filled location of these inner hair cells and another set of hair cells called outer hair cells. So these are going to be the auditory receptors are localized in what we call the inner ear, in this coiled, snail-like structure that's known as the cochlea. So it's really remarkable that this is a lot of transformation of energy occurring here, right? From vibrations in the air, right, or some medium you can actually hear underwater, right, and into captured by the pinna, funneled down the auditory canal, transduced into the physical movement of that eardrum or tympanic membrane, which is amplified and poking down, through the ossicles into the smallest bone of the ossicles, the stapes, into that oval window, generating fluid movement in that coiled cochlea, which is going to move. We're going to see, specific portions of a membrane that runs down the middle of that coiled structure, and it's going to end up moving, these inner hair cells, which are going to, carry out actual, stimulus transduction, convert that into neuronal activity. That's a really remarkable set, of, mechanical, changes, transductions that are occurring, before sound waves even reach, for example, the cells that carry out stimulus transduction. So we'll talk more about this, now.